Everyone talks about how cheap and beautiful Albania is, but after living here for a year, there are some real downsides that nobody likes to talk about. Some of these things are just annoying, but some of these things could make you reconsider moving here altogether. So before moving to Albania in 2026, watch this. Traffic. I've talked a lot about living in a walkable city, and I do, and it's great, but not everybody lives like I do. There are a lot of cars in Albania. The infrastructure is not really developed for it yet, and there is development everywhere. That could be its whole own section. Road construction is happening everywhere, all the time, and in and around the cities, traffic jams are constant. And on top of that, the drivers are very aggressive. From the cab drivers, to the bus drivers, to the food delivery drivers, everybody here seems pretty heavy on the gas and on the brakes. I literally saw a woman get hit by a motorcycle. Now he was braking, and she braced for it, and she took it like a champ, but it was pretty eye-opening. I saw the aftermath of a person getting hit at a crosswalk. I didn't see the person, but I saw the windshield on the car, and it was ruined, so I can't imagine he fared very well. Keep your head on a swivel when you're crossing the street here. That leads very nicely into inconsistent infrastructure. Now, I've mentioned this before, but at the end of December, there was a disruption to the main water line here in Vlora, and the water was out in the entire city for about a week. That's been the worst example that we personally experienced of the infrastructure being unreliable here, but it's really just scratching the surface. The power goes out all the time. As a matter of fact, it went out earlier today when I was in the coffee shop. Generally, it's not for very long, but it literally happened to me once when I was in an elevator. I try not to take the elevators anymore. The water pressure is often pretty weak here too. It was one of the first things that we checked before purchasing this apartment that we're in now. If you have mobility issues, pay attention to this next part. The sidewalks here are full of holes and trip hazards, and the curbs are really high. All the time I encounter places that will just drop off. It could be several feet where you'd expect like some sort of a warning or a guardrail, and there will be nothing. Often businesses are upstairs, but if a business has a ramp, it's going to be incredibly steep. I would be terrified to try and take a wheelchair up, or a walker, anything like that. Elevators are usually tiny, and they're often out of order. There's a coffee bar I've been to that you literally have to take a flight of stairs to get to the elevator. If you have mobility issues, this country could be very dangerous for you to traverse. The roads outside of the main roads seem to be under constant construction. Often they're more rubble and gravel than they are pavement, if they're even paved at all. Those are the worst areas when it's raining. I wonder if this is a symptom of craftsmanship. Now, this can vary greatly. I've seen a lot of really nice stuff here, but everything from the building construction to the quality of the coffee can leave a lot to be desired. I have no explanation for this. I do have some theories. I think a lot of it has to do with how isolated the country was. As more people from developed countries come, hopefully new standards and techniques will come with them and things will improve over time. The tile work in our first apartment was really nice. It might have been a little messy, but otherwise very precise. Unlike the apartment that we purchased, the building seems really well constructed, but this apartment has some of the sloppiest finish out I've ever seen. The baseboards are piecemeal, the door frames are laughable, and the tile work is so bad in the bathroom, I am genuinely concerned. I assume it won't be long before we have to renovate the whole bathroom because the mortar and grout is so sloppy. I think water's probably getting underneath and it's creating a mold issue. We hired a contractor here to do some built-in furniture for us, and we were really happy with that. We also had him install some coat racks, and he didn't even use anchors on the screws. The screws he used were only like a ½ an inch, and he didn't even put it into the wall. He drilled them into the facade that was on the wall. Well, that lasted about a month before they started sagging. And it's hard to even communicate issues like that because of the difficult language. When I first got here, I was really excited to start learning the language, but then I started taking some lessons. That's when I learned that Ship, that's the native language here, is one of the hardest European languages to learn. It has no close relatives and has a very complex grammar structure. Because it doesn't have any close relatives, unless a word is coming directly from another language, words will often sound completely foreign. For the first 4 or 5 months when I was here, when I would hear people talking, it just sounded like gibberish. Now that I've been here a little longer, I'm starting to hear familiar sounds and noises that are starting to stand out, and I'm starting to pick out words occasionally. I'm still eager to learn the language, but I've adjusted my expectations quite a bit. There's an expression here, avash avash. It means slowly, slowly, basically take your time. But without the language skills, it makes it really difficult to know when someone's targeting you with predatory pricing. Many of the expats that I've met here are on a tight budget. They might be relying on just their social security, so they're coming here to try and stretch their dollar. Well, often, if the local here sees an American, they presume they see a wealthy American, and they'll price their goods accordingly. Now that literally applies to everything from produce to cab fares, all the way up to real estate. I've personally overpaid on food and cab fares before I understood better how things worked here. You have to be prepared to advocate for yourself here, or you're going to be taken advantage of. Give them an inch and they'll take a mile. Know a fair price for whatever it is that you want to get, and push back if the vendor tries to overcharge you. It's not fun, but it's just the reality of life here as an expat. If you don't see prices listed, be suspicious. Negotiate cab fares before you get in the cab. Ideally, negotiate the rate via WhatsApp so you have everything in writing. I knew someone here that was about to close on an apartment, and the seller raised the price at the last minute. They just had to walk away. I've heard multiple people here complain that a landlord will try and put the responsibility of repair cost on them, but then they push back and the landlord will back down. But the next one's the one that scares me the most: healthcare infrastructure. My personal experience with this has been very limited, but I've heard several stories that concern me quite a bit. There's lots of ways the healthcare could go wrong here. I've talked in other videos about how finding certain medications here can be tricky, but really that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's not unusual to hear about people having a hard time finding medical workers in an ER. I once heard about a woman being shamed that her husband got food poisoning. I've heard about medical workers literally asking for bribes, or people being gaslit and told there's nothing wrong with them when there's clearly something wrong with them. I've heard good things about the private hospitals in Toronto, but considering that's 2 hours for me, that doesn't really bring me a lot of comfort. This is the kind of thing that I'm hoping is going to improve over time, but it could definitely be a deal breaker for some people. At the very least, it could have an impact on the area that you choose to call home. Don't ignore this one. Your life may literally depend on it. Get your pitchforks ready for this next one. Stray animals. This one's very divisive. There are cats everywhere. There are packs of stray dogs. They're all tagged, but they roam freely. I remember when I first came here, I had coffee with someone that's lived here locally for his whole life, and I said something I've heard a lot of expats say, which was that I felt bad for the stray animals around here, and he immediately pushed back and pointed out that it's not really much better the way that they're treated in the US. Often they're put down. At least here they have their freedom. It was a point I hadn't considered, but there are some genuine risks that come with the free-roaming strays. The dogs especially. And these aren't small dogs. I'm talking 50 to 80 pounds. You know, this is like a knee-high dog. And sometimes they can be aggressive. I personally met someone who was planning to move here, and he was, seeing properties and getting his ducks in a row. One day he was out riding his bike on one of the bike lanes on the main street, and a pack of dogs came and attacked him. One of them bit him on the leg and he fell off the bike. Luckily, the bike falling made a noise that seemed to scare the dogs away, but the whole encounter just completely soured him on wanting to live here. Understandably, having grown up in a small lake town, I can really relate to being chased by stray dogs like that. It's a terrifying experience. There's one I pass all the time. Normally it doesn't bother me, but the other day I was wearing a hat, and I hadn't worn a hat in several months, and it seemed to really upset him. Everybody's a critic. He only barked at me, but you never know how they're going to react. Stay on guard. Trash and litter. This one doesn't bother me as much, but I hear people complaining about it all the time. There is trash everywhere. It's on the streets, in the sidewalks, it's in the gutters, it's in the trees. You'll encounter piles where it looks like people are just dumping. The dumpsters are just on the street and they're open, so stray animals get into them pretty easily, pretty consistently. Literally all the time there's going to be people searching through the dumpsters, salvaging for stuff that they can sell or recycle. I was sitting on the bus one day, and I saw a kid in front of me. He was probably about 10, and he was drinking a soda and eating a bag of chips. He finishes the soda, he screws the lid back on, and he shoves the soda into the chip bag, and he just holds it out the window and drops it without a second thought. The trash is definitely a problem here, and the culture doesn't seem to care too much about it, but it seems like the government is trying to take steps to ameliorate that. Laura just installed some trash cans along the beach last summer, actually. I see city workers cleaning the main streets daily, and I basically never encounter dog waste along the main streets, so I assume that means they're picking that up pretty consistently. Litter's another one of those things that I assume is going to get better over time, but I've definitely seen it be a deal breaker for people. Once they see it for themselves, they just can't handle it and they don't want to stick around. That leads nicely into my next topic, smoking. The people here love smoking. It is everywhere. If you see people at a coffee bar drinking coffee, it will be accompanied with cigarettes. I remember one of the first things I experienced when I stepped off the plane into the Toronto airport. That was the smell of stale cigarettes at the baggage claim. I've heard people comment about the cigarette smell being different here, not quite so invasive. I don't know if there's anything to that, but my wife usually can't stand it, and she's commented about how it doesn't really bother her as much here. That said, it's another one of those things that I have personally witnessed completely be a deal breaker for some people. That's why I always advocate taking a test trip and seeing it for yourself before you make any permanent plans. Okay guys, hopefully I didn't upset you too much. Albania is a great country and I really love living here. I just did a video last week about all my favorite parts about living in Albania. You can check that out, I'll put a link in the description. But the reality is, it's no paradise and there's plenty to complain about. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, because I could definitely make another pros and cons list. If you'd like to support the channel, you can scan the QR code here. And if you enjoyed this, stick around and watch the next video. It'll help you understand what life for a US expat's gonna be like in Albania. See you next week.